I'd like to introduce Annette Collinson from England originally, but she's now in Spain and she has multiple sclerosis. Welcome, Annette.
Thank you very much.
Could you tell us a bit about your story? When were you diagnosed with MS?
I was diagnosed on the 21st of October 2009. I have primary progressive MS and it's in the early stages, I believe.
Right. And how old were you when you got your diagnosis?
I was 52 and a half. Hang on. Yeah, 52 and a half.
Wow. I mean, that's quite old, isn't it, to be diagnosed with MS? Had you had symptoms prior to that?
I think I started with it. With symptoms that I did have, I think I started in 2006 at the beginning.
Right.
And the problems were walking. I could not walk in a straight line.
Right. So everybody was thinking you were drunk, were they?
Well, you don't go to the doctors because you can't walk in a straight line, do you? I would just kept thinking to myself, Annette, come on, pull yourself together.
Yeah. Yeah. So, did you have any other symptoms at the time you were diagnosed?
2007, I started with cramp in my foot.
Right.
And I was getting it quite bad, and we was over in Spain at the time. And when I got off the plane back in England, I started with a cramp again on my foot, and I just doubled over my suitcase. And when we got back in the car, I was just having about 5 goes with cramp in my foot all the time. So eventually, we went to Blackburn Royal Hospital, and they checked me out. They checked me for calcium and deep vein thrombosis, and they said I were okay on both accounts. They said if it happened again, come back. Well, you don't really go back, do you? Which it did keep happening most mornings.
Right.
But I weren't going back because I had cramp in my foot. Then in 2008, I was involved in a car accident in 2000, and my spine's a mess. So I was seeing a specialist for my spine, and it was actually the specialist who referred me for a CAT scan, and I did on the neck, on my spine, and on my brain. And obviously that's where it showed up, I had problems with my brain and my spine. Then I started seeing a specialist beginning of 2009. And like I said, at the end of 2009, they told me I had MS.
And how did that affect you, being told you've got MS?
It wasn't a shock in one sense because my natural grandmother, she had it and she died with it. And it was one of those things it was always at the back of my mind. And I know it's not supposed to be hereditary, but they say you've got one.
1 second, it's my phone now. 1 minute.
Right.
Hello. Hello, Julia. Right. At what time, sorry? 3:45, okay. Okay. Yeah, on a Friday. It didn't matter whether it was a Thursday or a Friday. Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you. Right, bye-bye. Right, sorry about that. So we'll have to start that bit again.
Okay.
So I'll ask the question about how it affected you when you when you were diagnosed, okay? And then you can start again if that's okay.
Okay.
So how did it affect you being diagnosed with MS mentally?
Well, it was a shock, but I found out that it is in my family, and my natural grandmother had it, and she passed away with it. So it's always at the back of my mind that MS could be something within me. And that's going back to when I was about 35, I found that out. And I've asked doctors, is it hereditary? And they've always said no. But when I've read up on it, they do say it's 1 in 3 chance of having it.
Yes.
So while they don't say it is hereditary, I'm sorry, I don't believe that.
Well, I mean, some people have told me, there's 5 members in one family that have got it. And if it's not hereditary, it's a coincidence, isn't it? that number of people in one family. It is, isn't it? Yeah. Definitely. So what were your symptoms at the time of diagnosis? Had you developed any other symptoms?
No, I had the problem walking.
Mm-hmm.
I had the cramps in my foot.
Yeah.
And just my balance in general.
What about?
I was getting pains on my back,
Mm-hmm.
which I hadn't had before.
Right. What about your bladder and fatigue?
Oh, I was constantly weary. I really was. And I kept thinking, well, this is crazy. I'm not doing anything, so why am I so tired?
Mm.
And I was just absolutely weary all the time. My bladder can be a problem. I have to control it myself. Mm-hmm. If I'm going out, I don't drink much beforehand. My bowels do not work unless I take laxatives, and I take them from my doctor.
Right.
But my bowels don't work.
So I've lost my train of thought now. So what led you to find LDN? How did you hear about LDN?
When it did get mentioned, I think it's June 2009, I went for a lumbar puncture. Okay. And around that time, there was an article in the Daily Express of a lady that had been told about LDN, and she said it had improved. That's another thing. She's partially deaf. She had problems walking, and she was using a wheelchair most of the time. And she said now she could walk for further, and she got the hearing back. That was another thing I had. I was partially deaf in my right ear. Mm-hmm. Now, with taking LDN, I've got that back. I could never take the heat. Like I said, I'm over in Spain. I can take heat. I can take heat in England. Not that it gets that hot. I cannot take humidity, but I can't take that in England. But I cannot take humidity.
Yes,
it just floors me.
Well, it's funny because the lady in the article that you're talking about was actually me.
Was
and
it?
Yes. And humidity does that to me as well. I mean, my legs just do not work when it's humid. Husband and I went to Cuba, and it was the end of the rainy season, and it was so hot. You'd go and have a shower, and you would still be all sweaty. As soon as you were dry, you started to sweat again because it was so humid, and my legs just wouldn't work. I couldn't lift them, I couldn't move them. It was awful. But if you go somewhere, hot and dry, it's fine.
Yes.
But humidity is a terrible thing, isn't it? So you heard about LDN then. How did you go about getting a prescription?
Well, that's something else. Obviously, I had to get it through a private prescription. I asked my GP, and he
was
didn't
this in
say
England?
no.
Sorry, was this in England? Yeah, okay.
Yes, he didn't say no, but he told me to have a word with my specialist. Mm-hmm. And this was the end of, I think, around November 2009. But I wasn't seeing my specialist until, I think it was April. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was April. And I thought, I'm not going to waste time. This is my life. Mm. So we got on the internet, and there was a doctor in Bolton. Mm-hmm. I got in touch with that doctor. Dr. Wright it was, Alan Wright. I spoke with him. I did a telephone conversation. He asked me a few questions, and I told him. And he prescribed me LDN, which it was, like I said, done privately. Mm-hmm. When I asked the specialist, he said no, because it hadn't been proven. There hadn't been enough tests. But I didn't tell him at that stage I was taking it. I didn't. No. Why make them as wise? If it's helping me, I'm quite happy. But it has helped me. I've got my hearing back. I've stopped having problems with the cramp, stroke, spasm in my foot. And I started with that again in November 2009. I remember that because it's the day I went to see the doctor for a sick note. And then after that, I started having it in my hand, where my middle finger overlapped my first finger, and it was just locked. I could not separate them. I just had to relax and let it take its time. Now, since I've been taking LDN, that has stopped.
That's good.
Now, I'm putting it down, so it is the LDN that stopped that. But it has done. I've never had it since, when was it? I know I was having spasms beginning of 2009, and it were the end of January 2010 when I started taking LDN. I've been taking it over 12 months. Now, I believe there was a big conference in Birmingham last year, and it said it's quite safe for you to take up to 10 mil of LDN, which Dr. Wright did put me on 10 mil. He said, but obviously if you start with any side effects, reduce the quantity. I was taking LDN, 10 mil, no problem. Then Dr. Wright has gone back to NHS as opposed to being a private doctor. So then it was trying to find a private doctor who would prescribe 10 mil, which I'm going through eMed now, and they'll only prescribe 4.5 mil, which I'm back on.
Right.
I told them I was taking 10 mil. They said, well, it's their policy just to prescribe 4.5 mil. So there's nothing I can do about that. I've just got to take the 4.5 mil. But like I said, it's helped me with my right ear. I've got the hearing back in that. The cramps, spasms have stopped in my foot and my hand. And I can take the heat. I am getting worse at walking, but I suppose that's just the disease spreading.
What about the fatigue? Is that any better?
It is. And I don't say it. It's since I've come here. Before we came over to Spain, which was in January, I was still feeling weary, even though we're taking LDN back home.
Right.
Now, I've come over here, and I'm still taking the same quantity of LDN, and I feel better that way. I do still get, not tired, but I yawn a lot. And Ian's always telling me to get to bed, have a sleep. But I'm not tired.
Yeah.
It's just that I'm yawning. But I'm not tired, and I'm not weary like I was. I'm not.
Well, that's really good. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
I hope it's helpful to somebody.
I'm sure it will be.
Awesome.
Now, I forgot to say, or forgot to ask, which will have to be put in, Simon, I'm very sorry. What would you say to other people with MS who are thinking of trying LDN?
Or try it, please. It does help. It's helped me.
And have you tried to get LDN while you have been in Spain?
No, we've only just, well, it's only my records at the moment that have been sorted out. I signed up last week. Was it last week? Yeah, I signed up last week with a doctor here. Now it's just a case of when I start needing laxatives again, or I need to see a doctor.
Right.
Then I'll go and see the doctor and see what they say. See if I can get it from them.
Well,
I mean, at the moment, I'm still getting it from the pharmacy in Glasgow, I think it is.
Yeah.
And they're sending it over here. I should be getting 1 cent at the end of this week, which I'm just pleased about. I am. Yeah, definitely.
And did you have any initial side effects when you started?
I did at the beginning. At the beginning, I started on 1.5. Then I think it was after 5 days, you got to 2.5. Yeah, when I went on the 2.5 one night, and it was only one night, I had very vivid dreams. And then I increased it to 3.5, and then I went up to 4.5. And then, like I said, I went on to the 10 mil, and I found I were okay. I tolerated it well.
Good.
I did.
So you'll be continuing to take LDN?
Well, yes, definitely.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much. Okay.